welcome to Craig's Gun Channel. And this is actually, I just told Evan we probably weren't going to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. This is our first live broadcast, so hopefully it goes well. So, as always, this is Random Shots, where we talk about anything and everything that's related to firearms, the Second Amendment, conspiracy theories, politics, really anything that we think of that we want to talk about.
Anything we want. That's right.
As always the case, I appreciate your comments, and since now this is a live show, feel free to comment during the show, and we will try to pay attention and and be able to respond to you where we can. So, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I think Eben had something he wanted to start with here.
Yeah, so we had a pretty well-liked and well-received tidbit a week or so ago about anti-gun companies, and that kind of took off, and a lot of the comments I saw reviewing down through there were, all right, thanks for the anti-gun people.
Yep.
Tell me some of the pro-gun people. So if you've ever done a search for pro-gun companies on the internet or anything, it's like finding that unicorn or that needle in the haystack. There's not a whole lot of information out there.
Anti-gun, easy to find.
Easy, yeah.
Pro-gun, not so much.
It's probably because the woke folk that pitchforks and they'll burn down your business. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But we were able to find kind of a website that did a study on. And it was actually a leftist website that was grading companies based on their criteria, which I'll go over in a second, based on their criteria of what they expected companies to do or post or broadcast politically about guns. So let me go down through this. So a prominent anti-gun organization created a scorecard of businesses based on several criteria on how they and it reflects how much they support the anti-gun agenda. So keep that in mind. It's very important that when I give you these grades, it's reverse. It's a flipperooski. A A+ rating on this list of people is going to be anti-gunners, the worst of the worst anti-gunners. An F score from this website, this research company, is the people that we can consider pro-gun based on the criteria that they judge these companies on. So keep that in mind. I'm going to touch base on it again because it's very confusing.
Yep.
It's very confusing. So this scorecard was developed by reviewing media archives, industrial research, trade publications, and other publicly available information to develop this scorecard. The businesses were selected by identifying these segments. So they took the top 26 retailers from the YouGovSpecialtyRetail.com department stores, grocery store popularity lists. They took 4 more retailers from the Foursquare loyalty rankings for casual dining, fashion, and quick service restaurants. And then the top 4 with the highest gross profits in 2018, ranked by the National Retail Federation. And then finally, the last group was the 3 largest clothing retailers per the Business Insider's analysis of the Forbes Global 200 list. Now, that was a lot of gobbledygook that you're like thinking, what the heck did you just say? So 4 different criteria or research segments. One had 26 companies based off the top retailers. 4 of the top restaurants, let's just cut it short, restaurants. 4 retailers with the highest gross profits. That could be any retail,
any kind of retail.
Anything. Yep. And then finally, 3 of the largest clothing retailers. So if you're doing your math at home, I had earlier said 29 total businesses, right?
Yep.
So all those together are not 29. That is because?
Yeah, there's overlap. So on one list, they might have 26 on that list, but maybe one of those 26 was also in one of the lists of 4.
As an example, McDonald's may show up on
that might show
the dining one and then the top retailers.
Right, because they're huge. Yeah.
So this list consists of 29 companies and their ratings. So we're going to have everything from A's all the way down to F's. Now, I'm going to repeat myself. An A grading on this scale is an anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment company. They give them an A. This is from the viewpoint of an anti-gun research company.
Yep.
An F score, if you hear your company down here with an F score, that means they ranked poorly in the eyes of the anti-gun crowd,
right.
Meaning they are our friend.
So A for anti-gun.
There you go.
F for fantastic.
There you go. All right, thanks,
And
Greg.
the beauty of this, what I think is cool, we're using their research and their data against them.
That's right. That's right. So let's dig right into it. How were these companies ranked? Well, I'm going to tell you. And the retailers were reviewed for this type of activity to give them the grades. Did they have actions to reduce gun violence in their stores, including banning the open carry of firearms? That would get you a maximum of 60 points on their grading scale. Number 2, donations made to any of the top 25 NRA-backed lawmakers or politicians.
Yep.
So they can score high on theirs or low on ours if
right.
they are donating to politicians or to the NRA directly. The third.
Now let me make sure we clarify that, because that part can be confusing. Basically, what they're talking about is if the company donated money to a politician that was endorsed by the NRA, then that's bad. So they would get a lower score. If they didn't donate money to a pro-gun politician, then they would get points.
Flipperooski.
Yep.
You got to keep thinking Flipperooski here. Number 3, public record calling for action on gun reform. So you could get a maximum, these companies could get a maximum of 20 points if they had some sort of political outreach against or anti-gun or pro-gun control propaganda.
Yeah. What they call gun reform, we call anti-gun or gun control. Yep.
Keep the Flipperooski in mind here. Last, in addition, the final 20 points for this grading scale could be given if the companies had taken additional steps to help move, this is their wording, help move our country into a anti-gun, pro-gun control state.
Yep.
So those are our 4 criterion. Final scores were tallied and a letter grade assigned using the traditional grading scale. Keep in mind, one more time, A grade is for anti-gun, F grade is for pro-gun.
Right.
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to start with the grade A's. Since this comes from the Lefty website, they put these at the top. So a grade A is somebody that is anti-gun, pro-gun control. First one, Kroger, scored a 95 for a good old-fashioned A. Old Navy scored a 90, also got an A. And Walmart's one of those ones that we saw comments on our last video that, why didn't you mention Walmart? Why didn't you know?
And Walmart, the irritating thing is Walmart used to be a place you could go and get affordable ammunition,
right?
Affordable firearms, and you can still get ammunition and firearms at most Walmarts. But they made a big deal about the fact that if it's ammunition for any of those really bad self-defense guns or black rifles of any type,
right,
they quit carrying all that ammo. So you can get your shotgun shells or your ultra-traditional hunting rounds, and then low-cost versions of shotguns and low-cost versions of hunting rifles.
So these 3 companies, Kroger, Old Navy, and Walmart, wrap up our companies that got an A rating from these from this website.
So again, A's are bad.
A stands for whole.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
So let's go on to the B's. These
Okay.
guys just slightly came in underneath your A's. Amazon. This is another one that everybody was up in my chili about on the previous video. Why didn't you put the Amazon in there? Well, here you go. They scored a B, which is
still
bad.
That's still anti-gun. Yep.
Due to Flipperooski. Costco. This came up on our list already from the
Yep.
last one as being, I guess they're not shy about wanting to be
Yep. And he
anti-gun there.
got a lot of comments from people. Apparently, even though they don't really post it well, you're not supposed to carry in Costco.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that kind of got caught
Yeah.
off, with that.
And then there's other people that were like, flipping the double barrel middle finger. I'm going to carry in there whether you tell me to or not.
Yep.
And more power to you. Keep it up. Hot topic. I'll be honest. I didn't know what this was until Craig told me he shops there just about every weekend.
Yep. That I've got 52 piercings you can't see, and I keep that under wraps.
This is that mall rat hangout. If you
Yes.
go to your local inside mall, there's this Hot Topic, has all the flashy neon and I don't know, Van shoes and
Yep, that and rock posters,
Yeah.
and basically, if it would be in a college dorm or on a college kid,
yep,
that's
there.
where it's at.
Nordstrom. I don't have a whole lot to say about that. Starbucks. Who would've
Oh,
thunk
what
it?
a shocker! Yeah,
Man Bun Central. I'm not too surprised about that. You
No.
got anything to say about that?
no, it's no, and they have a big war chest because when you charge $7 for a cup of coffee,
Jeez. Well, they got to pay that payroll for all those 4-year college students with a degree that are $100,000. Now they're a barista, $100,000 in debt. All right, note to self: we should not take drinks of coffee at the same time. Just we'll write that down.
yeah, probably.
Target. Not no skin off my back there. I stopped shopping there. You guys remember when they were kind of the first ones to do the transgender
The whole bathroom thing. Yep, I wrote it off at that point
I'm like,
too.
you know what?
Yep.
If that's what you're gonna die on, then whatever. Trader Joe's. Never been in one.
I think I have been,
Yeah.
but
It must have been a very big impression in your life.
so big. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep on that one.
Gotcha.
Remember, these ones are still, what's the grade on
This
these?
is B.
These are Bs, so they're still basically
Bad.
anti-gun. Bad. B for bad.
Whole Foods. That doesn't surprise me. Aren't they like an affiliation of Amazon? Isn't that like an offshoot of
I think
Amazon?
they might be, actually.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So that wraps up our Bs. I'm going to run right into our Cs. This is the average. My opinion is, if you go off of a regular grading scale, they probably couldn't tell one way or the other with this company.
I would agree with that.
I have eaten here a couple times. Waffle House. Some of you partiers, party animals. This is maybe a mainstay for you. They get a C, so I don't know that I'd throw this one out.
Yeah, at this point, they're right on that bubble. I mean, you could go either way, and quite honestly, what that means to me is they couldn't make up their minds either. They weren't good enough to be called anti-gun,
right,
and they're not bad enough to be called pro-gun. So they're just even Steven.
So they got their 50 points, which gives them the C. Part of the C is from company-owned stores had policies to ban guns in their stores where franchises did not.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of gives it the
So
little,
at that point,
the little waffle. Get
yeah,
it?
I see what you did there.
They did get 20 points also because they evidently made donations to pro-gun candidates. So
But they probably had limited donations.
limited
Yep.
to get the 20 points. I got you. All right, so that's our grade C. Only one, Waffle House. Moving on to grade D, which is starting to get better.
Yeah, these are ones now that we need to look at. That these are, for all intents and purposes, I think we could consider them pro 2A.
I was told my whole life, no D's and no F's, Eben. You need to strive for the... But in this case, it's okay.
It's okay,
It's
yeah.
okay to be a failure on this list. Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm excited about this being a D. Now, breaking that down just a little bit, same thing as Waffle House. Company-owned stores, they had policies that no guns in their stores, where franchisees did not have that policy.
Okay.
So that's where they get that.
And I think most of those are actually franchise restaurants, most of them.
Okay.
So
And they lost points in this situation because they did donate a total of $12,500 to a pro-gun candidate in 2018. So shame on you, Buffalo Wild Wings. Our second and last grade D company is TJ Maxx. Now this is going to, it is a D. This is going to make my wife happy because she's a TJ Maxx enthusiast.
Oh, so she can still go there then.
So yes, this is not one that she's going to feel inclined to dump by the wayside. Let's get right into the meat and the potatoes, the grade F. So these are the companies that this liberal left website is basically putting out there to their minions to try to get them to not to give these people any type of support anymore. Chick-fil-A, my man. Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. What a shock there that they would give them an F, whereas we would give them an A.
It would have been hard to give up anyways, Craig. I'm a Chick-fil-A fan.
You're a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Son, I love me some Chick-fil-A. Dunkin' Donuts. I'll be honest, I don't eat there I don't pick up their donuts very often.
I don't either, and a lot of that's because I don't think we actually have one really close by around here.
But now that I know this Dunkin', I might go there instead of Krispy Kreme. So, McDonald's. Honestly, don't care. Every time I eat there, I have buyer's remorse and regrets.
Yeah, well,
20 minutes later.
The one thing you can honestly say about McDonald's is they're consistent. I didn't say they're good. But basically you're going to get the same burger everywhere. So, and sometimes that's the best choice if you're in a strange land,
right.
And I also question, because we had several people putting comments out there about McDonald's that they were actually anti-gun. I think what's happened in this case, I think McDonald's hasn't wanted to put anything out there.
They're trying to stay neutral.
They're trying to stay neutral. So I can't really necessarily say that McDonald's is pro-gun, but the anti-gun people couldn't say that they were anti-gun, so they gave them an
evidence,
F.
right?
Yeah, not enough evidence. Now, to put things in it just a little bit to clarify it, McDonald's owns Chipotle, which was solidly anti-gun.
In our last video.
last video, so.
Good. All right, we've got quite a few more here. 7-Eleven. I don't have any of those around here. Do you?
No, they're not huge around here, but if you have one local, they're a good place to go.
They're a big deal. Ace Hardware.
Yep.
I can see that. They're kind of old school.
They're old school, and the local Ace anyway, they got a full firearms department, and they sell all the fun Rudy Tooties, and so.
Let's give an F out to Applebee's, and you know what? That surprises me, but according to this website, they scored poorly for being anti-gun, which, you know what? Props. I would be surprised. I'm surprised, and this could be another one where there's not a lot of.
That could be. I don't have a whole lot of experience about them necessarily in the back workings. According to the anti-gun organization, this place is not anti-gun.
And I tell you what, yeah.
So
I think that at this point of where we are in a nation, I know that if something comes on the news that some left-wing harpies on the news saying that something is bad,
it's time to cancel this. Yeah.
You do the opposite, and it's usually the correct thing. I mean, so they're trying to get these people canceled. Maybe we should help them out a little bit. Barnes & Noble, this one really surprised me.
Me too, a little bit, because, it seems like that would be anti-gun.
Yeah.
But if you go into Barnes & Noble, they have a lot of gun books and a lot of magazines, hunting, fishing.
This is true.
Firearms, lots of magazines and stuff. So I can see where an anti-gun person would say, oh, icky.
Yeah, right. Dollar Tree. The good old Dollar Tree.
Yep.
Hey, did you know that Dollar Tree you can't buy anything for $1 there anymore? Because of
not surprised.
Bidenflation, it's like $1.25 for everything now.
It's the new dollar.
Just a little side note there. Old Chicago Pizza, never heard of it. Let's give an F to Rainbow Shops. I have no idea what a Rainbow Shop is. You got anything?
I know nothing about them.
Comments, put it down there. Let us know what the freaking Rainbow Shop is.
Yep.
Joseph A. Banks.
Okay, them I know about.
I can't afford them.
Yeah, well, I've had to a couple times.
Yeah. Good on you, Joseph A. Bank. We're giving you an F. Good on you. Kohl's.
This one surprises me.
Ditto.
I would have put Kohl's as an anti-gun establishment. So, similar to what Evan said, I can't necessarily say I endorse Kohl's as pro-business, but the anti-gun people have said that they're bad. So I tend to maybe think it's probably good to support them.
That's right. That's right. Go in skeptical, though.
Yep.
Make your own decisions on this. How about this one? You know what?
You're CNN. You're fake news. You have an agenda.
I don't like that
All
one.
I can say is it's totally fake news.
There we go.
It's fake. It's fake. It's made up stuff.
They ranked Nike as an F. Baloney, dude.
That's the one where this has to be the situation where
Give me a break, son.
Nike just is so playing the we're not going to publish anything, yay or nay, so they got a bad score. I feel very comfortable saying that Nike is not a pro-gun establishment.
They've got enough other baggage that even if they were neutral, I'd still
stay away from them. Yep, I agree.
Lowe's gets an F for 0 points. They donated $463,000 to top NRA banked politicians.
So I would say Lowe's is a good place to go shopping.
And would you believe that their brethren in orange, Home Depot, got the same F failing score from these libtards? Home Depot and Lowe's. Go get your stuff from them.
Which is just proof, though, that pro-gun people are also people who know how to build stuff.
Hey, self-sufficiency. That's the list. What do you think, Craig?
I like it. There's a couple kind of questionable.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say, by and large, most of the ones that, remember, it's the whole reverse thing, most of those D's and F's, I would say, would be places we need to go.
There you go. There you go.
Except for Nike. Which is a shame. I used to love Nike shoes. Well, back when I was in high school, and I know that's been a long time ago. But that was the thing to have. I mean, if you could get the...
It still kind of is. You know, it's still one of them that the cool kids are buying Nike. But I think I've successfully switched my family over to Adidas, which I don't know anything about them either. But I know they're not Nike.
But they...
Except...
and that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. So... That's how it is. Thank you for the suggestions to do this list. It was fun. Please put things in the comments as far as some other items that you'd like us to run down. But that was a fun list. What do we got next?
Well, I think something about some land.
Oh, yeah. Did you see? Let me pull it up here. So I got this little tidbit that punched me right in the kisser the other day. When I read this, I'm like, what in the hell are we doing? Got this from Daily Caller. It's called How Much U.S. Farmland Has Been Bought Up by China. How much would you guess? Just what would cause somebody to write an article like this as a, did you know this?
It's got to be a bunch. And
it's a bunch. 338,000 acres as of 2020 has been sold to Chinese nationals. U.S. farmland ownership has been sold to Chinese nationals in the amount of plus 338,000 acres.
Wow.
That's a shocker to me. Why is this happening? First of all, why are they buying up our farmland? Second of all, how in the heck is this being allowed to happen?
Well, yeah, and I don't know if that article goes into it or not. A lot of the land that they're buying is right outside of our military installations.
And that's good. It's a good segue because one of the main points on this is a lot of North Dakota land, which is right there by our silos and by our Air Force base, is kind of what spurred this whole thing. A lot of the land being sold up there. Kristi Noem, the governor up there, is really trying to figure out what's going on with this and trying to get some national attention to it and see what's going on. But I had no idea.
And well, I didn't know it was that much as far as acreage. I've been hearing that they've been buying up a lot of land, and then I did a little bit of just real brief research, and then I saw several articles that have been pointing out about the fact that, and it's not just land that's like near a military base. It seems to be a lot of land right next to the military base. So they're buying the land that's like adjacent to where the government property ends, the Chinese property begins.
Espionage?
Well, you gotta make you think. Espionage, if nothing else, they're keeping an eye on things. I don't think China is necessarily wanting to start coming over here to grow all their rice.
Right.
I mean,
no, I mean it's this is another tick mark in the back of my head that tells me that we're being sold out
yes,
in
yep.
mass quantities in rapid. I can't even call it slow motion anymore. It just seems like there's something new every day that the government ignores and just passes it off in order to appease China. We've been sold out, dude.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder.
So that's all I had on that. That was a quick one, but something for you to raise some concerns about if you're one of those people that writes to your congressman, or if you get on a talk show, bring it up. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, and ask your politicians to ask questions. Why is China being allowed to buy so much land next to sensitive military installations?
You know what?
I mean, we're talking missile silos are, in the northern parts of the country, there's a lot of fairly sensitive radar installations, things like that, first alert type of things, which... Did you have anything else you wanted to say on that?
No, I was going to say, do they need some place to land their balloons?
They might need some place to land their balloons, which, interestingly enough, was the next topic I wanted to bring up.
What a segue. Dude,
what a
it's
segue.
like we've been doing this for years.
So, the Chinese balloon. It seems like, and honestly, I was going to try to write some notes with this, and I just gave up. Because every time I turned around, there's something new. I mean, okay, first, the Chinese balloon... Oh, well, they finally saw it coming over, and we weren't sure what it was, and...
Traversed the whole continental...
Yeah, traversed the whole continental United States. By the way, maybe they were just wanting to check out all their land that they bought, because they actually flew, the path it took them over almost every single one of our sensitive military sites out west. Mm-hmm. They overflew all of them, starting in Alaska, all the way through Idaho, into Montana, into the Dakotas, all the way down. Why is that? And okay, then we find out, oh, well, we weren't even sure who owned it, and I guess, okay, now we find out that our government saw it launched in China.
I did not know that.
That's just what came out either yesterday or today, that they actually have been tracking this balloon from its launch. So they 100% knew that it was from China. And it's just, and then the argument, well, they couldn't shoot it down over any place that was populated. Okay, so over the Aleutian Islands, where it's, at last I checked, they're islands, so they're surrounded by ocean. That's right. So you couldn't shoot it over there, and it's like, and okay, I can almost buy the argument. It's like, well, international waters, and okay, whatever. Alaska, the population of Alaska is not huge. So plenty of opportunity there. Then it finally comes in, into those hugely populated states like Idaho and Montana. I mean, you can't go anywhere in Montana without running into 100, 150, 200 people everywhere you turn. There they are. So the whole thing, it just
I have
stinks.
a feeling you're being facetious here.
A little bit. And actually, I'm pissed off because...
As we all should be.
Our government, everyone out, the whole argument, what's the role of government? The number one role of government is the
Train
civil
people
defense
on transsexual rights.
Yeah, well, apparently, yes, you're right.
Is that not it? I thought that was okay.
That must be it. I've been.
No, what was the real one? Number one.
Yeah, it's civil defense.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
making sure that to protect our borders. First it was just the southern border. Now it's apparently anything goes, and now they've gone so far they're just shooting stuff out of the sky everywhere. And, they started to say it was aliens. It's just the whole thing. Like I said, you can't keep up with it. It changes so much. But one of the big things also, the balloon that was the one that we know for sure was from China, because we know for sure it was from China. They saw it launch there. It was at a high altitude. It was at altitudes of above 60,000 feet.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Remember that.
And
60,000 feet.
And that can be problematic. And I think you have something about that, maybe.
Did you have another slide?
No, nope.
No? Okay. All right, so some things that have been floating around about this balloon is it would be a perfect carrier of an EMP nuke head, nuclear warhead.
I mean, it might look something like that.
Yeah, just like this. So, and when you sit and think about it, yes,
Yep.
it is. They could float multiple and have multiple nukes on here that, if exploded above the surface of the Earth, creates this electronic pulse that just decimates anything that is electrical.
Yep.
So let's back up. I want to utilize this transition from the balloon to my next subject, which is an EMP. What would happen? Have you thought about what would happen on an EMP? So it's scary because it's a nuclear explosion, but that's not the scary part.
Yep.
So let's look at what an EMP is. It's a paradigm-shifting occurrence that threatens to plunge humanity into the Stone Age. Why? So a nuclear EMP is generated by a nuclear blast above the Earth's surface. So do you have, yeah, so
Yep.
here you see like the blast radius. So somebody floats in a balloon with an EMP on it. It explodes above the surface. There are rings, as shown here, of damage. They're basically damage rings. So these, when this nuke goes off, the electrons are ripped from the atoms and then reattached, and another pulse is emitted. So you get multiple pulses of this electronic surge that is too much for our electrical systems to handle.
I think actually there's a graphic here in there.
There we go. So basically that's showing above. I don't know if you can blow that up for a second. There you go. So blast above the electrons. So you do, the initial blast is still nuclear. It has the radiation, but that's not the big part about it. So in order to be affected by the radiation, you'd need to be right underneath the blast or in the area of the fallout where the wind would take it.
Yep.
So that's not the big problem. The big problem is the aftermath of what would happen. Let me get this up here. Okay, so this website that I took it from, it calls it pure chaos. Okay, so your house is fried, your car is fried, airplanes are fried, your phones are fried, telecommunications is fried, emergency, your police, your ambulances, all these emergency services don't either have vehicles or their equipment doesn't work. Your nursing homes, your hospitals, everything there runs on electricity. They're shut down. So no power means no running water, no refrigeration, no AC or heat, no lights, no communication, no access to your funds in the bank. That one I think is a killer too. It would literally send us back to the Stone Age. Most people would not know how to survive without those 5 or 6 things I just mentioned.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
Maybe some of you guys are privy to prepping or self-sufficient where this would not affect you as bad, but it's still going to affect you. Stay tuned here. Out of desperation, once all this would happen, hordes of people would take to the streets looting and stealing almost immediately any supplies they could find.
Yep.
So there was, back in, I think, 1998, there was a very bad thunderstorm over New York City that in strategic areas in New York City, lightning strikes hit the transformers, blew them out, and blew out like a third, half of the city for like a day and a half.
Yeah, I remember that.
You do remember that?
Yep.
So within 6 hours, the people went nuts. They didn't have access to their ATMs. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have couldn't go to the restaurants and get their food. No lights, no traffic signals, so wrecks, whatever, congestion, more than what's normally in New York City. So within six hours, they were busting glass out of storefronts, stealing stuff, going to the grocery store, cleaning out. Just total chaos within 6 hours in a small dot on the Earth's map But think about if an EMP goes, it's, do you have that next slide where it shows like the radius? So that first smallest circle right there in the middle, the smallest circle in the middle, you can kind of see that I think that's over Oklahoma. But at 30,000 feet, that area right there would be, is projected to lose all electrical functionality, that little circle. The higher you take the EMP and blast it, the more the circle expands.
Okay.
So the next one, I believe, Craig, maybe you can help me read that. I think that says 60,000 feet.
You want me to blow that up?
Let's see. I'm sorry, that says 120 miles. I'm sorry, 120-mile radius at 60 miles above the Earth. So that's your next one. That actually takes, heck, that takes over half of the geographic and knocks it out. Some of Mexico and some of Canada also. So the higher you go, the bigger the damage. What does 60 miles remind you of?
Well, 60 miles it's quite a bit higher than that 60,000 feet.
Was that the 60,000 feet that?
Well, no, I mean that's still 60. It's a lot higher.
Okay.
But the 60,000 feet, you're getting into the range to where an EMP device would work.
Okay.
But it'd still be on the smaller scale.
Okay. All right.
But if you have multiples,
that's right.
I mean, this is showing one at
That's
a high enough altitude could essentially, at a high enough altitude, you could essentially take out almost the entire United States.
That's right.
A single device. And I know that they did testing and stuff in the 50s. I think it was called the Domino or Dominic project, something like that. Some of the nuclear testing. We were blowing up stuff all over the place in the 50s.
Out in the Pacific, right?
Out in the Pacific. And they did aerial, testing and stuff of this stuff. And what they were finding, and one of the things that they surmised was high altitude balloon carried nuclear devices could be a delivery method for EMPs.
And how long ago is that?
Well, that was in
Decades?
the 50s. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That was in the 50s. And the devices have just gotten better and smaller since then.
So we've already talked about hordes of people taking the streets looting. The EMPs create surges in current and voltage in all electrical components. I think I already said cell phones, televisions, radios, computers, cars, trains, and planes would all go down because of computers built into these devices. Now there are varying authorities on this topic that have different percentages of how many. Like I did some research on some study done by the government that they did some of that testing, and they said anywhere from 7 to 15% of the cars would be knocked out with an EMP.
Yep.
And that was over a decade ago that they did that study. And some people claim that anything with an electrical computer in it is going to not have the surge protection to handle it. So even on the low end, picture 15 out of every 100 cars while you're flying down I-71 just done.
Well, how many times you've been driving down the road and there'll be a vehicle that's had some type of a issue and they couldn't get off the side of the road.
What does it do to traffic?
What's it do to traffic?
Yep.
A single car.
Yep.
Now do that to
Times
what? 10% of all the cars on the road.
Yep.
You're not going to get anywhere fast.
So electrical grid would probably be fried, and it would take months to years to repair it.
Yep.
To get rid. So we're not talking about your middle of the winter Ohio ice storm that knocks you out for 5 days, and it's the end of the world.
Or the squirrel that meets an unfortunate end on the transformer.
We're talking it's a way of life for a year or so, you know, until things go back. What do you think people are going to act like?
Oh, it's. I know it'd be terrible. And you might have this in there. I read a study not too long ago that gave a percentage loss of life from a national, so a complete United States power, destruction of the grid. So no electricity. Does it mention that in there?
I've got a study on it. I want to see what yours says and see how close it is.
I read 90%
bingo
fatality So that means
within like a month.
Well, this was, I think, a year.
A year? Okay.
So that means only 10% of people would be alive.
And that comes from a multitude of things. You got sickness, and I'll get to that. You got crime. You got hunger, starvation. Heck, just a multitude of reasons that are affected by this.
Yep.
Think about this. Prisons would shut down. Either inmates would be trapped in there, or if somebody had a heart, they'd release everybody so that they have a fighting chance. But you're releasing all these criminals out on, what do you think that's going to do to the situation?
Well, it won't be good.
No, it will not.
Well, like you said, you had that example in New York when the power went out for a night.
Yes.
And, okay, people knew that it was just the power went out in their little neighborhoods. People went berserk.
Right.
Now, imagine if people woke up and it was dark everywhere.
Yep.
And you knew it was not going to be just an overnight thing. It would be all kinds of bad.
Criminals that would either be let out of prison or jail, or the criminals that haven't been caught yet, are going to quickly realize that the police are crippled. They're going to feel emboldened to do more of what they do best. Right?
Criminals are going to criminal.
Criminals are going to criminal. Good one. I already mentioned also a little bit, think about hospitals and nursing homes being shut down. People would start dying because breathing machines would stop, or their life support, which, okay, but it's not on their terms, you know. Prescriptions, if we've talked about this before, if trucking and the supply chain gets disrupted because vehicles don't work, or computers can't throw out the logistics and map out.
And there's no manufacturing capability.
No manufacturing. Prescriptions. So there's a lot of your 90% death right there. Prescriptions. Oh, here's one that I never thought of before. Elevators would be deaf. Can you imagine being halfway down from floor number 15 in downtown Minnesota and having it freeze in between where you can't open the doors, you can't get out, and you just sit there and starve to death?
Yeah.
All right, here's another thing. Nuclear reactors depend on electricity to run the reactors so that they can get more electricity. There's electrical components. It's not just it's just not splitting the atom,
controlled
right?
And stuff, so yeah.
So if they're shut down and they can't be cooled, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, yeah. Well, you know, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island.
Yes.
You know, name your nuclear runaway reaction.
What would be your guess to how many nuclear power plants, reactors, are located in the U.S.?
Wow, actually, I don't have an idea.
99.
Okay, that's more than I thought there were. That's
99 of them. All right.
So let's just be real conservative. We'll just say only 10% of them have a problem.
It's just compounding.
That's still 10 nuclear reactors that have meltdowns.
It's crazy. Did you think of that? The car one, everybody talks about the cars losing power, and if you're doing 70 miles an hour around a curve and your power steering goes out,
yeah,
say goodbye. Some cars would hit other cars doing major damage. The EMP Commission.gov test, it's an EMP Commission that did a test, indicates that roughly 15% of running vehicles, this is where I told you there's some varying data out there. This is the government side of it, so take it with a grain of salt. 15% of running vehicles may shut down if exposed to EMP blast over 25 kVm. You probably know what that means. I don't. Do you know what kVm is?
It's kilovolt something.
Okay. It's how they gauge the power of it, I guess. Let's see. Cholera. How do you say that?
Cholera.
Cholera would likely become a problem within the first few weeks.
Because our water treatment plants would,
there you go.
would all be down.
No power, no water filtration. Plants would go down. Humans can only survive how many days?
3 days.
3 days without water. That is probably playing heavy in your 90% death rate. Oh, here's a different one that I've never thought of.
Okay.
Can you imagine in the middle of a day, EMP goes down, vehicles are crunched, communications crunched. There are a lot of kids live anywhere from 5 to 20 miles away from their school.
Yeah.
right? Can
Yeah.
you imagine the chaos from mom and dad frantically going to try to find their kids when an EMP goes, and what kind of chaos that'll be?
And let's face it, most Americans are soft. When
There
you
you go.
suddenly have to go pick up your child,
They're going to be hiking at that point.
and you're going to be hiking for 15 miles, that's not a
Yes.
small feat.
Yes.
I would say these days, sadly, I don't think most Americans would actually be able to do that.
Heck no, I couldn't do it. All right, you can depend on police and other law enforcement agencies having their hands absolutely full. That is the ones that don't bail and go be with their families and
Yep.
protect their families. So what's the percentage of people that are going to stick around to do their duty as a police, and the other ones are going to be just like, you know what, you're on your own.
Yep.
I'm going to help mom and dad and my kids, which I can't blame them.
Well, no, at some point, yeah, you can.
The more crimes that go uncontested, the more emboldened the criminals become. The severe degradation of law enforcement will embolden criminals. It's not out of the question that some organized gangs and other criminal enterprises will use this situation to create their own law enforcement or roving packs of warlord type of situation.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have that sprouting up all over the place. You know, you'll be fine. You just have to pay your protection money, and then they'll make sure nothing happens to you.
Like the old mafia. It'd sure be a shame if your house would burn down.
Yeah,
You better give me that wink, wink, blood money.
Yep.
Let's see. Computer simulations carried out on March of 2010 by Oak Ridge National Laboratories demonstrated that an electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear device detonated at a high altitude could destroy or permanently damage major sections of our national power grid. We kind of already knew that. A single EMP at 30,000 feet could impact 130 million Americans and require 4 to 10 years to fully recover. Trillions of dollars in economic cost. So that is the bulk of it. My last kick on this EMP thing is some other things that will be affected. Obviously, power grid laptops, tablets, cell phones, cell service towers, internet routers, electronic gun safes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hope you have your backup key.
Wow. TVs, radios, refrigerators, and freezers, thermostats, electronic banking. That's a big one, I think. Computerized components of vehicles, cars, planes, ATVs, motorcycles, UTVs, pacemakers. There's instant death. Hospital diagnostic machines, anything with a microchip.
Yep.
All the above items are going to be extremely vulnerable to an EMP. What's worse is that such a scenario could potentially last for years. It would take years, if not a full decade, for power grid to get up. This is a different rendition of it. 90% of Americans could be killed by starvation, rioting, disease, dehydration, murder, and suicide. Suicide's something to think about. Once you get that far in the doldrums where there doesn't look like there's hope, the suicide rate, and we're already in a suicide crisis now, so that would not help things.
You have to think too, you've listed all these different things. All of those things would be happening all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about it, when you hear that number that 90% of the people would not make it, that sounds almost impossible until you start thinking about all this stuff.
Heck, I've seen soy boys with their man buns getting fight if their Starbucks is 5 minutes longer taken to get it. How are they going to handle any of this? So.
Oh yeah, and it's it's all kinds of bad, and it's a real threat. And here comes the little bit of a spiel again too. It's a real threat the government's known about. When was that the lab? That was like
the last one was 2010.
2010. So what, 13 years ago? Since that study was done, there's been prior ones. We can actually do some mitigation stuff to harden our electrical grid and things like that. It won't stop it, but it would maybe make it to where it wouldn't be quite so debilitating. And it'll cost money, but really not that much.
That's probably
in the
not
grand
something
scheme of
they're
things.
willing to fork out money for when there's so many more important things for government to pay for.
Yeah, I get it, but that's just, there again,
I'm
the
joking.
basic things that they're always talking about, you know, we need to spend this money for infrastructure. How many trillions of dollars have they earmarked for infrastructure now in the past 10 years? I don't know about you. The roads are terrible. The electrical system is no longer reliable.
Well, Pete Budaplug, he's doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, we might as well move on.
Let's move on.
So, yeah, feel free to, any comments and stuff that you have on this, let us know, because, my goodness, it can be
It's kind
bad.
of depressing.
It kind of is. So let's cheer things up a little bit.
I have a feeling you're being fake on that one.
Yeah, a little bit.
You are fake news.
Yeah. We did recently have a little bit of another type of a disaster that took place, but you'd never know it because there again, if you based it on the government, that was the train derailment that we just had in East Palestine.
About it, aside from Tucker.
Yeah, no one's talking about it. It's starting to get some more traction now. I mean, now that it's been almost 2 weeks, people are starting to kind of notice it. But for any of you who still are not aware, because you know the news got out whether the government wanted it to or not.
Right.
But in East Palestine, Ohio, on February 3rd, there was a train derailleur. And what made this one bad is there were 38 rail cars that derailed and an additional 12 cars that were damaged. And of those, 20 of those cars were carrying hazardous materials.
Heard about this.
So it's not just that, you know, like in 2014, we had a big train derailleur. We were talking about that a little bit earlier in Ohio, and it was a freight train of carrying corn. I mean, so there was corn all over the place. Okay, no big deal. No, these ones were carrying hazardous chemicals, including vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, ethyl hexyl acrylate, ethylene glycol monobutyl ethers. Were all released into the air or spilled. Most of these things are actually a gas. However, they're put under pressure and then liquefied in these tank cars. So just to give you an idea a little bit of what we're talking about, there was a total of 174,000 gallons of various chemicals and gases that were spilled.
That's it?
That were
That's
lost.
all just a minor spill?
Yep. There's up to an additional 174,000 gallons that haven't been fully accounted for yet. So those are ones where, okay, some has leaked out of the tanks, but they're not sure how much. This was as of, you know, when this data was compiled. Okay, now 5 of the freight cars were carrying vinyl chloride.
That's the one we heard about.
Yeah, and that's the one that caused the big problem, because vinyl chloride, in case people don't know, it's what's used to make PVC. You know, those plastic pipes that are everywhere. Well, it starts off as a plastic or a liquid monomer. Well, it's a gas. It goes into a chemical process, and that's what ends up creating the PVC. Well, it's very combustible. It's explosive, actually. If it mixes with just air in an uncontrolled fashion, it can create explosive gases, which could explode. So there was a fear of it having an uncontrolled explosion. So they decided to release it all and burn it. 129,000 gallons of this stuff was released.
I'm not a civil engineer, but there has to be a better way of disposing of a toxic spill than burning it into the atmosphere and letting it float across with the wind flow.
Man, you would think.
Who was the idiot in our government that made that call?
I'm not sure who the actual person was, but well, it had the backing of our, you know, fear-filled leader, Governor DeWine. But anyway, in addition to all of those liquids, there were 5 hopper cars that were just filled with solid, either polyethylene or polyvinyl. So basically, they were hopper cars full of plastic, and those were all burned. So I don't know if anyone's you ever burned plastic?
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
It
It's
doesn't,
like a little piece of plastic, and you smell it for the rest of the day.
And it makes this really dense, thick smoke, and it's poisonous.
Now imagine that times a tanker car times how many tanker cars?
Well, there was 20 total, and I don't know how many were actually burned total. But so anyway, it looked like this. Here, let me blow that up. That's not a nuclear explosion.
Unfreaking believable.
That's, one of the pictures that was taken. And that was the result of burning the vinyl chloride. So here's some interesting statistics for you. So there were 5 tank cars carrying up to 129,000 gallons of vinyl chloride. It's a colorless man-made gas used to make polyvinyl chloride, commonly referred to as PVC. The gas is linked to an increased risk of a rare form of liver cancer known as hepatic angiosarcoma. That type of cancer accounts for only 2% of liver tumors and is exceptionally deadly. The average life expectancy for those who are diagnosed with this is 10 months. So, this gas can cause that. It's also linked to primary liver cancer, brain and lung cancers, lymphoma, and leukemia. The gas can be consumed by humans, or enter your body through inhalation. If a water supply becomes contaminated with the substance, the gas can also make its way into homes that use the water, and for showering, cooking, or laundry.
So, can I interject something here?
Sure.
I saw a map with where East Palestine is, and I don't know if you have anything to verify this. It's on. It is right beside the Ohio River.
Yes.
That if you look at a blown up picture of all the rivers that flow into the Mississippi River and that basically feed the fertile crescent of...
The Ohio River is one of the primary feeders of that. Yes.
This smells like sabotage again.
It really does. And this whole thing is just horrible. So, but anyway, so if it's released as a gas, it can break down in the air within a few days, forming other chemicals, such as hydrochloric acid. And they have had now some acid rain fall in some of the local areas, formaldehyde and carbon dioxide, and it can also become highly explosive. So they decided to burn it. So you saw what that smoke was.
Yes.
That just looks horrible. So here's the problem when you burn it. They've decided to release and burn the liquid, even though they knew that the burn would lead to the creation of phosgene and hydrogen chloride. Now, phosgene, in case you weren't aware of it, during World War I, you've heard of that one, right? The big problem with World War I was the trench warfare and all of the gas warfares. Phosgene gas was the #1 killer gas used in World War I.
Now, everybody's heard of mustard gas. Is it close to that, or is it something different?
It's very similar to that. It operates the same way. It causes pulmonary edema, and basically your lungs fill up with fluid and die.
And you suffocate or drown. Basically drown.
Yep.
Wow.
It's phosgene exposure is associated with significant morbidity and mortality. Hydrogen chloride can irritate the eyes, throat, skin, and nose. So it's an irritant. But there again, when you mix that together, it irritates all the surfaces, and then you get all the other stuff. So it's all bad. So that's just the one chemical that they decided to burn. There's other tank cars, 30,000 gallons of butyl acrylate. The entire load was spilled onto the ground. It's a combustible liquid that can cause problems through inhalation, skin absorption, ingestion, or skin and eye contact, causing eye, skin, and upper respiratory systems to be irritated. It could also cause dermatitis, experience difficulty breathing. If it's swallowed, medical attention is needed. A repeated exposure could cause permanent lung damage.
Wow.
Ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, otherwise known as 2-butoxyethanol, is a colorless liquid that can cause harm to the eye, skin, kidneys, and blood through exposure by inhalation, skin absorption, ingestion, and skin or eye contact. It's used as a solvent in paint strippers, things like that. In 2015, the EPA said that the compound has potential to cause serious or irreversible chronic health effects in humans, specifically liver toxicity and concerns for hematological effects, or effects with your blood.
Wow.
Let's see, what is this one here?
This sounds like the possibility, or the probability, I should say, of decades, if I could say that, of repercussions.
Oh, yeah.
Just
easily, yes. So there was one tank car that had ethylhexylene acrylate, 30,000 gallons of this stuff, an unknown amount was spilled. This compound's also used to make plastics, and it's a carcinogen, and also an explosive hazard, so it can cause cancer. Let's see. Then there was another tank car full of isobutylene, 25,000 gallons of it. Now, it was listed as not having any spilled, if you want to believe them. Then there's benzene. Now, benzene was not being actively carried, but there's 2 tank cars that had benzene residue in them, where they were empty when this thing was being transported, but they still had some liquid in there. So some benzene could have gotten out. So anyway, the company says it's finished recovering the liquids. So yeah, good news. They recovered it all that it collected.
You're lying.
But they collected onto, how do they list it here? They'd finished recovering liquids that had collected onto nearby surface water. So it's already mixed with the watershed in the area. And air sampling continues. And on February 12th, so this is several days ago, the EPA said that it had not detected contaminants at levels of concern in and around the city, although residents might still smell odors, which...
Honestly, it's fake news. It's fake.
I don't believe it.
So if you can smell odors, that means it's
There's
still
still
there.
particles. Yep.
Yeah. So working with Norfolk Southern and the Columbiana County Emergency Management Agency, the EPA had screened the air inside about 290 homes as of the 13th, and had said it had not detected vinyl chloride or hydrogen chloride, which could cause life-threatening respiratory issues, although up to 180 homes had yet to be screened. Now keep in mind, from what I've also read, the railroad company itself was conducting a lot of these tests, and the EPA was just going by those results.
What do you think they're going to do?
So there was particulate matter detected because of the fire, but the EPA said that it doesn't really, that it did not detect chemical contaminants of concern in the hours following. However, noxious odors have been largely dispersed, though they still remain near some streams, according to local reports. So there again, it's gotten into the water. Residents in the area and tens of miles away may smell odors coming from the site. This is because of the byproducts of the controlled burn. They have a low odor threshold, that they say. The agency said at the time, this means people may smell these contaminants at levels much lower than what is considered hazardous. However, OSHA, the Occupational Safety Hazard Administration, the permissible exposure limit of most of these is 1 part per million, averaged over an 8-hour work shift.
Oh my.
So they consider 1 part per million as dangerous, but if you smell it, it's okay.
And what is the parts per million if you could smell it?
Well, they didn't list
say.
that,
but it's got to be more than 1 per million.
It's got to be. I would think.
Our senses aren't
we're not
enough
that
to pick
good.
up a one in a million.
Fish have been turning up dead in streams. Pets have died. Residents have reported experiencing symptoms associated with exposure to toxic chemicals. Many people fear the true scale of the environmental effects is yet to be identified.
I've heard rumors, unfounded, but people on all the crack books and Facebooks and whatever, dead cows, dead wildlife.
I've seen some of the dead wildlife. I've seen some dead chickens.
Fish. I mean,
I've seen dead
given
fish.
They can cut and paste something from another and do it. So these are anecdotal from people that supposedly, who knows?
Right.
But it's horrible, man.
Yeah, but okay, here's one example, though. The butyl acrylate spill, it said that it had been stabilized. And the railway had says that they had 2 20 cubic yard containers of absorbents impacted by the butyl acrylate and petroleum, and they've been staged on site to remove it. So according to the railway company and everything, and then the EPA, of course, is like, yep, good to go. Yep. They put all this absorbent stuff out there, so, think like, cat litter, stuff like that. They sucked all this stuff up, so they got it all, they cleaned it all up. However, a memo from the Cincinnati city manager on February 10th said that low levels of the compound were being found in samples of the Ohio River outside of Cincinnati.
Down Cincinnati, which is what?
The other side of the state.
250, 300 miles downriver?
Yep. And by the time the river, the watershed, the Ohio River, by the time it goes all the way by Cincinnati, that's right before it turns left and goes straight down into the other southern states.
Unreal.
So,
that is devastating.
Yep. So residents, have been complaining of headaches and feeling sick since the derailment. There's already been a federal lawsuit filed by 2 Pennsylvania residents seeking to force Norfolk and Southern to set up health monitoring for residents in both states because it's right on the border of Pennsylvania, and to pay for related health care for those in a 30-mile radius. There's a total of 4 lawsuits so far that have been filed against the railway over the past week, accusing the company of negligence, and they're making these class action lawsuits. So the environmental impact on this is huge. Now, here's another picture I want to show you. So you see this one here.
Yep.
Okay. This is what it looks like
Hiroshima.
from the airplane.
That looks like Hiroshima.
I mean, that's just the cloud buildup, the smoke buildup shortly after all this was going on. This is before it all blew, into the entire region east of Ohio into Pennsylvania. So, and here, let me make that bigger for everyone to see it. I mean, that just looks unreal, and it's crazy.
Does this say another government agency that's carrying the water to cover up
Well,
a situation? For...
The levels of incompetence of this has been huge. Governor DeWine has yet to call a state of emergency. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, he stayed hush on the massive train derailment that occurred in Ohio this month as he celebrated the Biden administration's infrastructure investments on Monday.
But wasn't he in a car accident? He made a comment that he just got rear-ended.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, his silence on this has not gone unnoticed. There's on both sides of the aisle, progressives and conservatives have been critical of him on this. Let's see, this one, he jokes about balloons while ignoring East Palestine, Ohio. Former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, a Democrat, tweeted alongside a video of Buttigieg poking fun at the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down last week.
So out of touch.
When the topic of racist highways or white construction crews comes up, Pete Buttigieg is an open book, former GOP congressional candidate David Giglio of California tweeted. But when an ecological disaster takes place in Ohio, he's MIA. Former Representative Maya Flores, a Texas Republican, asked on Monday, "Where's Pete Buttigieg? How will this Ohio train derailment affect our farmers, the nearby population, and our supply chain for Americans?" And the Lever, an investigative news outlet, reported last Friday that despite the train derailment, Buttigieg and his department have not reinstated an Obama-era rail safety rule related to expanding better braking technologies that officials have said could help prevent future derailments. And when asked if this technology would have reduced the severity of this Ohio incident, Stephen Dittmeyer, a former senior official at the Federal Railroad Administration, said, yes. So the government is asleep at the switch with this. Now,
Yes.
Norfolk and Southern has a lot of responsibility for this. But where is the government response? There again, this isn't like, Bubba spilled a 5-gallon container of gasoline, outside.
Yeah, it's not like they just... And also, you were telling me before we went live that this is not the only derailment we've had recently.
No, actually, interesting. In Delaware, Ohio, just a couple weeks ago, there was a Norfolk and Southern train that derailed as well. Now, this one is a small derailment. All of the cars were empty and stuff. Right. There was one tanker car that was on there, but there was no spill or anything that we know of.
Right.
And also, it was either yesterday or today, another Norfolk and Southern train in Michigan, where there were 6 cars and one of those was carrying hazardous materials, derailed. So
and there was another one in Houston, Texas. I don't know if it was.
Yeah,
Norfolk.
I'm not sure if that was Norfolk and Southern or not. But I'm telling you,
what's the theme here, Craig? Is somebody deliberately attacking or picking out a way to get to us is to do something to our railways? It sure seems like it. Either that or we are grossly incompetent with the upkeep and management of our railways.
Well, I can't discount.
Or is it both?
I can't discount that being a possibility. So I would say it's both. But you have to wonder the amount of stuff is going on. Another thing I just remembered. Also, I think it was last week, there was a fuel tanker on the freeway on 23 heading toward Delaware that had an accident and burst into flames on 23.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
took
either.
out the lights and stuff. There's a gun store on 23 there by Orange Road. Most of you people living nationwide could care less about this, but right there on the highway, and the fire was hot enough it melted the lines and took out the traffic light. So
Nice.
US 23 became like a four-way stop there for a while.
So I was listening to some. This kind of goes along with your railroad thing. I listened to a podcast that is covering this, and there has been, according to this dude, over 800 in the last year, over 800 occurrences of railroad inspectors finding purported sabotage or what do you want to call it? Anything from sabotage to terrorist type of attack attempts on railroads that they've caught. Everything from connecting the rails with wires to deformation or damage to the tracks that in the attempt to derail. But over 800 instances in the last year that they've caught. It sure as heck sounds like this is something that is more than just an anomaly.
It really does. I mean, yeah, and we need to make a whole separate show where we just talk about all this stuff and wrap it all together. But the really super short summary of this, if I were thinking about attacking this country, this is the type of stuff that I would be setting up.
Yep. It's covert, not overt.
Yeah, it's covert, and it causes a lot more trouble than what you think it does. I mean, in this case, that those people that live in that town. I mean, and let's face it. I don't know if for people that aren't familiar, it's a very rural town. It is not a wealthy town. I mean, most of the people that are there.
Mining? Is it a mining type town?
Well, it was. I don't even know, because most of the mining activity has been shut down now because, current administration. And
hey, Steve K mentioned in our chat that there was another derailment in Detroit today.
Oh, okay.
Detroit. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, it's just, it really, really makes you wonder. And what is going on?
Yep.
And so it makes you wonder what's going on. It makes you wonder why our government seems to be, I keep going back to this. How are they so good at being so incompetent? I mean, all the time.
They've lost sight of what their charge is from the American public. Their charge is to, like you said, protect us from outside invasion and make our infrastructure suitable for interstate commerce. That's it.
Yeah.
But now they're concentrating on all this stuff. And let's be honest, once they get elected in office, from day two, what are they focusing on? Getting reelected.
Yeah, well, getting reelected and getting the stupid agenda stuff passed.
Right.
And they've lost their sight on the ball. Or is it even worse? Are they actively working to destroy the country? Because I can't discount that anymore.
Right.
I mean, at some point, you have to ask, is anybody that incompetent? I mean, even an idiot will make a right decision every once in a while by accident.
Right. But we just can't seem to put that together, can we?
No, we can't. It's sad and pathetic. So
we're running
that's all I
long
got
on this one. Let's wrap it up. I got couple quick snippets. I'm going to call this last little segment "Random Thoughts for Random Shots." Get it? Yeah. All right. So if you put the first one up there, can you make it big real quick so they can read it? I want everybody watching this video to think this way. A lot of what the government does is for distraction purposes only. This guy on Twitter says UFOs, thanks Murray, at Rothbard1776. UFOs are a distraction from Pfizer, the U.S. blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, big tech companies coordinating with the FBI, U.S. intel to censor Americans and influence elections, Epstein client list, which is, I don't know if they've released it yet, but it's supposed to. and what you were talking about, the deadly chemical release disaster in East Palestine, Ohio. I thought that was a good one for today.
Yep.
Number 2, random thoughts for random shots. This is my fave. This criminal in this picture is caught after cutting off 37 man buns in one day, claiming that he was doing the Lord's work. More power to you, buddy.
Yeah, I
That's
can't
a good one.
necessarily say that he did anything wrong there.
Should we start a GoFundMe for him? All right, next one is a class. Can you make that one big? Greta Thunberg, our favorite teenager. I am so pleased to share that the climate book is now available in the USA and Canada. I have gathered the wisdom of over 100 contributors to highlight the many different crises we face and equip us with the knowledge we need to avoid a climate disaster. Tried to do my best, Greta.
How dare you?
How dare you? What is funny about this post, guys, is these harpy lefties that are so anti-capitalist and crank on capitalism all the time are only against it when it's convenient. But when they want to make a buck, oh, they are all in, both feet. They're all for capitalism.
Oh yeah.
You're a fraud, Greta Thunberg. How dare you? All right, my next one. This is interesting. We had a little bit on the China thing. So, DC Drano, thank you, shout out, hat tip. While American kids are being taught gender doesn't exist by twerking drag queens, other countries are doing this. If you can't tell, this is a young, I don't know, maybe 5-year-old, 6-year-old Oriental fella that is in a classroom full of his peers learning how to disassemble and reassemble a firearm. So keep that in mind. That makes you go, My next and last one. Many of you have noticed in the news that Nikki Haley recently announced her candidacy for president. Nikki Haley is a Jeb Bush in heels, I think I've seen her described as. She's a swamp creature also, and going back a couple years ago in the Bubba Wallace noose in my garage thing, she tweeted this out knee-jerk reaction-wise. We should all stand with Bubba Wallace today against the cowards who secretly put a noose in his garage stall. What was that noose? It was the garage door.
That was the pole for the lower door.
Every other garage on that racetrack had the same exact thing.
Well, these races they get around.
Oh yeah, they don't care. But
and they install garage.
So long story short, Nikki Haley acted like a leftist and knee-jerk reaction through that race baiting narrative out there to show that she was virtue signaling, trying to get the support of the minions that fall for this BS. Just keep that in mind when you see Nikki Haley go up against the other Republican candidates for president in a couple years.
Yep.
So.
And actually, before we sign out here, we do have some comments that came through. My apologies, I was having some technical difficulties here, and actually I didn't see them till now. So I just want to go ahead and clear some up here. Mr. Bunzengear, good name, I like that.
I like it.
What do you prefer more, the standard Ruger Mark or the 2245? Personally, I prefer the 2245. Now, I prefer shooting the 2245 because the grip, it's just, I think it's more ergonomically, I like it better that way. From an appearance perspective, I like the classic one a lot better. Just they look cool, but I actually prefer the 2245.
Good question.
Let's see, Sammy P. What's the range of an EMP? Well, as Eben had listed there, we probably already answered your question, but just in case, an EMP, the range can be anywhere from very short range. I mean, they actually make what's called tactical EMP devices, which would be like very local, regional. Generally speaking, when they talk about EMPs, you're talking about stuff, they start out usually at about 150-mile range, and if you can get one up high enough and big enough as far as the blast, one device could take out the entire United States electrical system. Let's see. 500 Magnum, howdy. Thanks for commenting. Steven Walters, rural areas will be rough, but to manage cities will either be abandoned or trying to be war zones. Any given moment, there's over 500,000 Americans on life support that will die. Those are all very good points. Let's see. Shepherd of Mother Earth, this channel deserves more subscribers.
Yeah.
Thank you much. We appreciate that. Let's see. It looks like Eben was already, let's see, another one near Detroit. So thank you very much for everyone commenting. We've appreciate your viewership. And if you like this type of content, make sure you subscribe and share us with others. Let other people know.
This was fun.
It was fun. We look forward to next week. And there again, Thursdays, 8 o'clock. Usually try to keep it around an hour. We went way long on this one. We blew that one. But normally we'll try to keep it around an hour. And so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up.